And without further ado, introducing you to Hellblade, please welcome, from Ninja Theory, Dominic Matthews.
Hi, I'm Dominic Matthews from... can you all hear me okay? You can now. Perfect. I came to EGX and I talked about our vision for how we integrate Hellblade and that vision that we had for the game. To start off, Just Studio's been around for just over 15 years, and over those 15 years, console and PC titles, Kung Fu Chaos back in 2003, then Heavenly Sword, Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, DMC Devil May Cry, and then the definitive edition of DMC Devil May Cry in March of this year, and then at the end of last month, we released the co-developed Disney Infinity 3.0. And over those 15 years, we've established a set of core pillars that define the types of games that we make. And those pillars are melee combat gameplay that is responsive and visceral, unique art visions that we hope make our games stand out from the norm, and character-led stories that take our players on journeys that we hope they won't forget. And over the course of creating those games, we've delivered quality games that have received great reviews. We've delivered games on time and on budget. But as a mid-sized AAA developer, we faced a tough dilemma. And that is, do we go really big with our AAA developments, or do we do something else completely and walk away from AAA? And the reason for that is that the fixed price of AAA games at retail of about $60 has meant that games can't compete on price. And instead, they have to compete on their size and their feature lists. And this has meant that AAA games need to be made by far bigger teams that cost a lot more money. And because development costs are so high, those games need to be able to sell to a mainstream audience of millions and millions of players. And the result of that is that creativity has been lost. Those big AAA games can't take creative risks. So for us, we had a choice. Do we go really big, increase the size of our team from the about 100 people that it is at the moment and double it or triple it? Or do we do something else? And if you look at the space now, there's two distinct parts of the market. There's the big AAA blockbuster games that are sold at retail, fit into a handful of genres that can survive in that big AAA market. And then on the other side, the smaller indie titles that are highly creative, break through the boundaries of any specific genres and in fact invent genres all of the time, but have to work under independent restrictions. But between those two, there's very little in between. And this is the space that we call independent AAA, and this is where Hellblade sits. An independent AAA is about making games with all of the creative spirit and freedom of indie development, but still trying to achieve AAA production values. It's about owning the game yourself. It's about publishing the game yourself to build a direct partnership and relationship with your players. And it's about being able to take creative risks and making a game for a smaller, more engaged audience. So why do we care? Why do you care? Well, we care because the independent AAA model will allow us to make creative games. And for us, it's not about making millions and millions and becoming really rich. It's about making a decent living from making the types of games that we want. And for you as players, we hope that independent AAA will give you more diversity and more creativity in your games than you can currently find in that big blockbuster market. And so Hellblade is our first game in this space. And Hellblade tells the story of Senua, who is a Celtic warrior on a journey into the heart of a savage Viking clan. And it's much like our previous titles in that it's a fantasy action game. But in the case of Hellblade, the fantasy comes from Senua's mind. As I say, she's a Celtic warrior, but she also happens to suffer from psychosis. And that's in the form of auditory and visual hallucinations and delusions. So for us, we're focusing on the Ninja Theory pillars. We're making this game for our fans and people that like to play our games. It's going to be a shorter experience and a more intense experience. But because we're releasing it digitally, we can make the price reflect this. And we want to take creative risks. In fact, we have to take creative risks and hope that they pay off. So this is AAA on a budget. And for us, that means that we have a far smaller team than we would ordinarily. On a game like DMC or Enslaved, we'd have about 80 people working on the game. With Hellblade, we have 15 people, and that's all of them sitting around that table. And we have to be innovative in driving quality from the resources that we have. So we have to take a DIY approach. We have to be inventors. We have to question everything that we've done in development before and see if we can do it in a more efficient way. And by creating Hellblade independently, we have to take creative risks, and we can take the opportunity to tackle a challenging theme. And in the case of Hellblade, that's psychosis. And the theme of psychosis and mental health is something that we have to take seriously. We have to treat with a great deal of respect. And we have to do our research to ensure that we're portraying Senua's experiences with psychosis in a truthful manner. So we're very proud to have the support of Wellcome Trust, who are a global charitable foundation, who are in part focused on engaging people in science. And it's through them that we're working with a psychiatrist and professor of health neuroscience at Cambridge University called Professor Paul Fletcher. And importantly, we're working with people who have lived experiences of psychosis, so that we can understand their stories, understand the types of things that they've had to live with, but also to show them the game, to get their feedback, and to work together to make sure that we are delivering Senua's experience in this truthful way. And it's really important to say that I think everyone's experiences with mental health difficulties, whether it be psychosis or another form of mental health difficulty, is personal to them and is unique to them. And we can't hope to possibly portray any individual's experiences, but we want to portray Senua's experiences. So it's all about her and her journey. And we're taking the opportunity with Hellblade to be open in our development, something that we haven't been able to do before. So we're sharing a lot of the decision-making, a lot of the processes behind the game, and we're sharing assets and the creativity all the way through development. And we've done this from the beginning, and we'll carry on doing this until release and beyond. And this is because we think people are interested in gaining an insight into how Hellblade is being made, but also how lots of games are made. And quite often, developers and these processes are hidden behind a wall. And this presents a risk for us because we're showing the game in very early stages where the game is not complete, it's not gone through production, it's not gone through polish phases. And the risk for us is that the game is judged against other games that are far more complete, are far further into development. But we're committed to open development, along with all the bumps along the road and on the way, because we think this is an important thing to share with you, our fans, how we're making the game. We want you to come on the development journey with us. So in the spirit of open development, I'm going to show you some of the things that we're working on at the moment. And to start with, I want to show you a cinematic scene that we created for our vertical slice demo. And this will give you a feel for the tone and the direction of the game, but also allow you to meet Senua.
Peggy 18.
I'm not turning back. It took months to get here. Well, maybe, but I made my promise.
You will die.
We'll all die someday.
Setting up.
I'll continue tomorrow.
You're afraid of the dark.
I'm being patient.
Getting closer to him.
I hope so.
You sure it's safe here?
Yes. Nobody followed us.
Be careful.
I know. I just wish I could rest a little. Shh. Someone's here. I see you.
Get up and fight. You're pathetic.
Control the fear. Let it pass through. Remember its path.
Find the light, the light is your straight and red.
Open your eyes.
So where are we at in the development of Hellblade? So we announced the game last August at Gamescom, and at that stage, we were in the concept phase of the game. We had a very small team made up mainly of artists. And in that phase, we created the broad concept for the game with some supporting art. We then moved into the prototype phase, and in this phase, we tested ideas, rapidly prototyped ideas around art, design, audio, combat, other gameplay elements. And we took those ideas and put them together into the vertical slice, which is where that scene comes from. And the purpose of the vertical slice is to test those ideas, to answer our development questions before we move into the production phase. And now we move into that production phase where we actually build the game. And the vertical slice that we created, that gets thrown away. We take forward the ideas that worked, and we leave behind the ones that didn't. And now we start production and start making the game with the answers that we have from those earlier phases. The key element for us in production is creating a truly believable character, one that feels lifelike and one that you can build a relationship with as you go on her journey with her. And a technology and technique that we believe is the best way of delivering a believable character is performance capture. Performance capture is something that Ninja Theory pioneered in games when creating Heavenly Sword, and we've used it in all of our titles since. But performance capture can be very expensive. We've flown out to LA or to New Zealand typically to shoot our performance capture. With Hellblade, with the small budget that we have and the small team, there's no way that we could afford that. we didn't want to sacrifice performance capture, so instead we had to find a way to make it work. And our way was to build a DIY performance capture studio in our boardroom. So what you can see here is some of the work that went into that, which included working with Vicon, who are a creator of performance capture hardware, to collaborate with them to try and find a technology solution that would work within our restrictions. But it also included us buying lighting from Amazon and wardrobe poles from IKEA. And I'm happy to say the results of this have been really quite encouraging. In fact, the cinematic scene that I showed you was shot entirely in our boardroom. And this week, we've been shooting scenes for the game in that space. And something that we're really excited about in particular is Senua's facial animation. So we capture face, body, and voice simultaneously to try and create a seamless performance. And facial animation is something that we've always had a focus on. But with Hellblade, the underlying animation system that we're now working with is over 10 times more complex than what we've worked with before. So we're expecting a level of detail and nuance in that facial animation that is far beyond anything that we've achieved on our previous titles. And in production, we're rebuilding Senua from concept up. And this is the new concept of Senua that we're working with. And the approach that we're taking with this is 3D scanning of a real model, so that for Senua's character model, we have as much detail and nuance in that as we possibly can. And in these images, you can see some of that detail with the muscle structure on the back. On the hands, the level of detail goes down to not just the lines across the palm, but actually down to fingerprints. And the cracks on the heels at the bottom of the feet. And for us, this is all about creating the most lifelike Senua as we possibly can. And this is that 3D scanning in action. So this is Jeff, our character artist, testing out the handheld 3D scanner on Chris, our animator. Chris was happy for me to use this image as long as I mentioned that he doesn't always have that tan line. And we're going to use 3D scanning not only for our characters, but also for our environment as well, to capture detailed rocks, trees, leaves, other objects in the real world that we can scan to take into the game. And we're working on new enemy concepts. Enemies that are rooted in Senua's story and in the narrative. And these are two of the concepts here. And when it comes to building our worlds, we have one environment artist. And the approach that Dan, the environment artist, is taking is a kit part-based system where he creates a small number of very detailed, high-quality assets for each environment and uses these in clever ways, resourceful ways, to deliver quality, variety, and the breadth of world that we need for the game. And I'll show you a video now that is an art style test that we created in the vertical slice phase of development that we used to test construction approaches and art styles. And the woodland scene that you'll see in this video is created from that small set of assets in that image there. So in that video there, we have environments that are built in these small digital dioramas to test out the assets and to test construction approaches. And as was noted in the video there, it's free from any complex lighting and post effects. And in this next video, I'm going to show you some of the ideas that we've been playing around with that are related to Senua's unique perception of the world. Through our discussions with the service users that have direct lived experiences of psychosis and hallucinations, we've built up a picture of the types of things that people do see, hear, and experience. And our effects artist, Mark, has taken some of those ideas and tried to visualize them in the game. And we've been really happy with the results, but we've also been really encouraged by the fact that when we've shown these to those people that have experience of psychosis, they've been really impressed with just how close we've managed to get to visualizing the types of things that they live with.
As we all know, my heart is so, love is so far away. Don't you know how I wanna feel deeper? I could never know how you grow, all these days are killing me. Now I see deep in me, insanity does unfold. I just wanna feel deeper, deeper. I just wanna feel deeper, deeper. As we all know, my heart is so, love is so far away. Don't you know how I wanna feel deeper? I could never know how you grow, all these days are killing me. Feel like this, read like this, I just wanna live, that's all. I just wanna feel deeper, deeper. I just wanna feel deeper, deeper.
When it comes to combat, we're rebuilding the Hellblade combat system so that it allows for growth in depth and in breadth throughout the production phase. So what I've showed you today is really a snapshot of Hellblade development really from today. The assets that I've shown you are from the last couple of months, even some of them the last couple of weeks. And this is how we're going to continue developing Hellblade openly, sharing as much as we can. And we're creating development diary videos. We have 14 so far in a range of areas from psychosis, performance capture, our approach to creating music. And we're also blogging weekly, if not more, about a range of subjects, concept art. We're running Q&A sessions. We're talking about changes within the team. We're being as open as possible. So if you're interested in how we're making Hellblade and the process behind the development, the decision making, and seeing the game evolve over production, then please do join us on this journey. Follow us. You can see all of our updates at hellblade.com, at Ninja Theory on Twitter, on Facebook, and Official Ninja Theory on YouTube. thanks a lot for listening. We've got time for a Q&A, I believe. There's a microphone just here, so step up and ask away.
Hi.
Hi.
From the outset, you clarified how you were going about this new type of development with the indie AAA. And it almost feels like the media hasn't acknowledged this new approach. They've been almost critical, comparing Hellblade to other bigger productions. How have you managed the feedback you received so far and tried to take it in your stride rather than taking it to heart?
Well, developing a game openly is a new thing, and it comes with a set of risks. As I mentioned, that it's not often that players or anyone interested in games get to see games at this early stage. It's usually a lot closer to release, and our eyes are open to that. But we're committed to it because we believe that people are interested in gaining an insight into how games are made. And we can't let any bumps in the road on that journey stop us in that aim of creating this game in that way. I think the most important thing for us is to make sure that we do the best job that we can of explaining ourselves and letting people know and understand exactly how our processes work, the terminology that we use, and where we are at in development. And that's a learning process for us. But and I also think it is for the people that are following us. But I think we can work together to build a greater understanding.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, if
Hi.
I can ask how the workflow works for you with the music, with the sound layer, because I could assume you need to provide really good quality of the sound, especially to stress the importance of psychosis, how that works for the small team as you are now.
Sorry, is your question how audio is going to...
Yeah, how you cooperate with people who created music for us, how you make sure that's the best quality possible.
Yeah, sure. So one of the really nice things about working in a small team is that we can be super close. Everyone can be super close, and that goes for the music as well. So the composer of the Hellblade soundtrack is Andy LaPlaga, who we worked with on DMC. We're working very closely with him. And in fact, we have an audio lead that is joining the Hellblade team as of next week. And we're really excited about the potential of audio in this game. As you say, it's a super important thing for Hellblade. And we've got some really interesting ideas as to how we can try and deliver this experience in the most immersive and compelling way. It's something that we're looking forward to covering in some of our development diaries.
Hiya.
Hi.
Will there be microtransactions? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, no.
You mentioned briefly about the combat. Do you have a solid ideas of what the combat's going to be like? Is there anything that you could compare it to right now, or is it still just in the initial stages?
No, I think one of the nice things with what we're doing is that we can try different things out, and I think in our vertical slice phase we were working specifically with things that were new to us, with ground-based injured combat and directional combat. But you know, I think for us now it's about creating that combat engine for production so that it gives us the opportunity to add depth and add breadth across it. So I don't want to compare it to anything at the moment because I hope that it will be unique in itself.
Thanks.
Hi. I didn't really want to ask a question. I just wanted to say thank you for making some of the best games I've played over the past few years. In particular, Enslaved, which is a game that sadly not more people should play. That game, it's amazing. One of the best action games that you've in recent years in DMC, and thanks for continuing to sort of like push the boundaries in terms of this story that, you know, with Hellblade in terms of tackling mental health and also, you know, raising more awareness of it, and also female protagonists, you know, there's not enough of them, and so just want to say thanks and keep on going, and despite what people say.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Well, thank you for playing our games, and it's comments like that that make this job incredible. So thank you.
Hi, everything the gentleman said before me. Thank you. My question is, what made you decide to feature kind of mental illness in your game? Because obviously it looks like it will play a big part of Senua and her personality, and it will impact gameplay, I assume.
Sure. So it's something that you know, a number of members of the team are really interested in. Is the working of the mind. So when we started Hellblade, we really thought about exactly what we wanted to make, and it's the first time we had the freedom to really create something that we wanted to. And mental health as a subject and psychosis, I think, are misunderstood and are not talked about, and can be misrepresented in a lot of media and entertainment, and even in games. So we want to take the opportunity to portray Senua's journey and Senua's story alongside her psychosis in a truthful way. That's really our aim. Thank you.
Hey, I played Heaven's Sword, and looking at this, a lot of people have probably thought that this was Kai. That's just been put to rest, as you said. But is there anything at all that may appear from Heaven's Sword? Is it just a little like an Easter egg at all?
No.
Okay. See ya.
Thank you.
All right there.
Hi.
First, I would say the game does look fantastic, even in such early stages. The main thing that kind of surprised me was the size of the team you told us you're working with. You said 15?
Yes.
I was surprised by just how small it was, and I think quite a few people who are either working in small teams themselves, you've probably got quite aspiring designers. Any words of advice on working in teams or just working on your own games in general?
I think for us, it's you know, we're very fortunate to have a lot of really talented people in the team that have been working on AAA games for 10, 15 years, even longer, some of them. But something that we have to remind ourselves a lot is to not fall back into those ways of having a really large team. So I actually think people who are in a small team, you have a benefit, because you have very clear lines of communication between 2, 3, 4, 5 people. But I would always say, and this is something for us, is don't sacrifice on the quality, just find another way. Keep searching for another way to deliver the thing that you're passionate about. Try and drive efficiency, be innovative, which is what we're trying to do in this experiment, really, to see if we can make this work as a model and deliver those AAA production values with that small team as well.
Thanks for coming, and if you're watching on YouTube, please stick around for Valve's Czech Falisek at 3 p.m.